Hello everyone, welcome to another video and welcome to this week's GT Sport Daily Race C race review. We are at Circuit de la Sarthe with no chicane and we are in Group 1 machinery, or more like Group C machinery, and as you're going to see we're going to have a few issues with penalties. First up, here is the settings for this race just before we go into it. If you've seen the strategy guide you will know that I recommended using a Group C car and it was very much a no stop strategy with no issues on the fuel or the tyre wear. So moving on to the first race, let's take a look at the grid. And did we call it right in the strategy guide that it was going to be Group C cars that were required for this one? Yes, we did. And we also kind of called it right when we said that the R92 CP92 from Nissan would probably be the most popular car, just purely because it's got the highest top speed down the long Mulsanne straight. Now I think 15 out of the 19 runners are in the Nissan. There's a couple of Mazda 787Bs, I think there's one Peugeot 908. And the car that I have decided to go for is the Porsche 962C. Now if you've watched my race reviews you will know that I like to go in a car that's not traditionally the meta car for the combination. But the Porsche, as I could see from my strategy guide and sort of my qualifying time, which was also set in the Porsche, did certainly have the potential to be competitive. So coming towards the first couple of corners, you've got to brake very early on the opening lap. And things are not going to go off to a great start in this one as we apparently cut the second part of the Dunlop chicane and we pick up a half-second penalty. Now the penalty gate, as I also mentioned in the strategy guide, I did know by this point in the race, is halfway down the Mulsanne straight. It couldn't be in a worse position, and a half-second penalty actually translates into about a 2-second loss at the very least. So out of Tetra Rouge for the first time and on to the 1 minute long at full throttle Mulsanne straight, and we are about to fall victim to the new slipstream settings that came in with update 1.61. Now the slipstream range used to be 1.5 seconds, therefore if you're within 1.5 seconds of the car in front of you, you got a massive boost in speed down the straights. Now that's now been changed to 7.5 tenths, which means it's a lot harder to sort of stay with the car in front of you and just get that free drag down the straights. Slipstream is now a little bit more powerful when you are in it than what it used to be, but I do think it's a positive change for the game. I think 1.5 seconds back was just a little bit too far, even though as far as I'm aware it is actually quite realistic to sort of pick the slipstream up from that far back. Anyway, we've served our half-second penalty. You can see we're dropping down the order and we're now down into 8th place. Coming into Mulsanne corner, we sort of break nice and early and we actually sort of cut the corner a little bit tight, get a better exit, and the sort of Frenchman kind of gets on the loud pedal a little bit too much and sort of sideswipes us as they kind of lose control of the car, and we pick up a 2-second penalty. Now I had sort of heard before going into this race that the penalty system was a little bit dodgy, and that seemed to certainly confirm that one. We get a little bit of a bump draft there as well, but doesn't seem to affect us in terms of getting a penalty. I have heard that if you bump draft the car in front of you, you can give that car a penalty. Now I did get bump drafted several times over the two races that we're going to look at here, and I never picked that penalty up at any point, so there must be something a little bit more going on to sort of trigger that penalty. Anyway, out of Arnage, I believe that last corner we came out of, we served our 2-second penalty and we are now down to 9th place. Now we did start this one in 5th place, it's certainly not going very well. Nissan goes for the move up in the inside into the Porsche curves. No point me kind of fighting that one too much. We were going in slow, just give them the space, and we are now down in 10th place as we approach the end of lap 1. So an eventful first lap, not a good first lap that's for sure. Let's see if we can start recovering some positions. So approaching the 4 chicanes for the first time, the Nissan driver is going to go defensive. That in the process is going to make them get their lines completely wrong. They're going to cut one of the corners there, they're going to hold us up massively in the process, but they do pick up a 1-second penalty. Now, little tip, do not ever defend into the 4 chicanes. If a car's, if it's only 2 tenths behind you, there's a single file through that corner. If a driver goes for a dive up the inside, then there's not really a lot you can do about it, but never ever defend into the 4 chicanes. It is just not worth it. Will mean you get your line completely wrong, and you'll possibly pick up a 1 second or a 1.5 second penalty like the driver in front of us has. So thankfully we should be in the slipstream range of this car in front. Once they serve their penalty, we can then sort of pass them that way, but they're going to get it wrong before that. They're going to go wide at Tetra Rouge, they sort of fly back onto the track in front of us, and thankfully we guessed the right direction to get round them without getting held up. So we jump forward here to lap 5. I've picked up another position up into 8th place, courtesy of the German. It's now in 10th place, serving a penalty down the Mulsanne, and we've kind of sort of put in some reasonable laps and pace here. I managed to catch up to this group of car in front of us. I think that's 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th. So possibly the chance of maybe picking up a 4th place here depending on what happens. And there's a couple of cars ahead of us that have also got penalties to serve, so that's going to be good for us, and we are in the slipstream range of the Nissan as well. Now the Porsche can't quite match the Nissan down the straight. The Nissan will do 231 miles an hour, whereas the Porsche sort of tops out at 225. But when it's in the slipstream, it can sort of hit 233 on occasions. Now sometimes it doesn't seem to get to 233, sometimes it only gets to about 229. I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. I don't know if it's something to do with sort of the undulations in the track. You can see we're up to 233 miles an hour now. Nissan in front of us of the Dane serves their penalty, and I think one of the other cars in front of us, I think it's one of the Mazda that started in pole position, has also served a penalty up ahead, and that works out quite nicely for us as we managed to kind of get into the slipstream of that car for the second part of the Mulsanne. So we're going to be approaching Mulsanne corner here a lot quicker than we have in any previous lap, but thankfully we get the braking nice and just about spot on. A little bit of fisticuffs going on up ahead, so we certainly got a bit of a race for these last couple of laps, or last lap and a half that is. Now we're in the slipstream of Evil Bunny 107 in front of us. They're actually in the Nissan. I think they said they were in the Mazda. They are in the Nissan. We sort of take an optimistic look up the inside here of Indianapolis, but it's a very dangerous corner to go for any kind of move. Again, we're going to take a sort of a bit of an optimistic look round the outside here, but we have to back out of it. We're just going to kind of get run out of track there if we try and sort of stick it round the outside. And obviously you're taking the wider line, so lengthening the track at the same time. So coming out of Arnage, we get on the power just a little bit too enthusiastically. Quite easy to do in this car. You have to have this car nice and straight before you kind of get fully on the power. And I'm going to sort of drop back before we get towards the Porsche curves. Now we've dropped back to just under a second there. But thankfully this is the sort of part of the track where the Porsche seems to have a bit of an advantage over the Nissan at the very least, or for what I could gather. Certainly able to go through these curves a lot quicker, and in particular seem to be able to go through the last 2 chicanes much quicker. So you can see just how much we're closing up here. We've closed up 4 attempts already. Back in that slipstream as we come down into the 4 chicanes. Now we've also got the advantage of being able to go through without a car directly in front of us, and able to take our perfect line and the amount of speed that we know we can carry through there. So coming on to the last lap, we are in 7th position here, and we've still got a bit of a outside chance of a 4th place if we can get this last lap right. So into the Dunlop chicane. I think it's called the Dunlop chicane anyway. It could well be called PlayStation. Anyway, we get through there without a penalty. Had a few problems with those corners anyway, always have done, no matter what category you're in. It can be very random in terms of giving you penalties there. But we get through this time without a penalty. Sort of take a few liberties with the inside of Tetra Rouge there, but thankfully we don't pick up a penalty. But we've lost the slipstream of the car in front. Thankfully, this is where I got mixed up last time. The Mazda that was the pole position driver has picked up a half-second penalty, so we managed to get back into the slipstream by the end of the straight, and we're going to get a nice run out of Mulsanne corner. And can we get the move done on the Mazda down towards Indianapolis and Arnage? So we're getting a nice slipstream here from the Mazda. We're forced to the outside of the track, but as you can see as we pull out of the slipstream, the Mazda's actually got much better pull at this kind of speed, and actually pulls pretty much a car length ahead of us before we get to the braking zone. Up ahead though, the Frenchman Cal Crashlow is going to send Evil Bunny into the boonies. and then coming into our Nash here, Cal's going to get it wrong and run wide. And that's going to allow us to get a much better exit and get around the outside of the French driver. We managed to get the car fully ahead and we're able to pull in to the slipstream of the Mazda in front, but Cal is quite clearly not happy with his mistake and has decided he's going to have this 5th place back regardless. Throws it up the inside of the first Porsche curve. Now if I hadn't seen that coming, we would have a much bigger collision and I would have ended up off the track. I was not happy with that one at all, so we actually end up trying to take these corners just a little bit too quick, and we're going to run wide here and pick up a half-second penalty. So yeah, it just seems that the French driver wanted that 5th place regardless. I was a little bit upset with their mistake. I'm going to try my very best to give him a big fright into the second part of the chicane. I was hoping I could maybe make him run wide, pick up a penalty, but it's not to be. I'm going to cross the line in 6th place. Despite the penalty, we hold on to that 6th place. And not a bad recovery given we were once down in 10th, but we did start that one in 5th. Far too many mistakes to be perfectly honest with you, particularly kind of picking up sort of silly track limit penalties. But that is very much a feature of this race, that is for sure. So let's move on to take a look at race number 2. So this race number 2 is the race immediately after the one that we've just shown there. So a lot of the same drivers are still present. We're qualified this one in 4th place, so we're up 1 position from the last race, and the advantage of that means that we don't actually start in the middle of the chicanes. So P1 to P4 actually clear the 2 chicanes before the race gets underway. I think from P4 up to around about P maybe 12 start in the middle of the chicanes, and that can cause absolute carnage as you're kind of sort of in a slow corner. People get on the power far too early and quite often spin out. Opened up a little bit of a gap there to P5 purely because of that, and base design here in P3 is going to brake super early for turn 1, and that allows us to sneak up the inside quite comfortably. Now you do have to brake early for that corner, that's for sure, but he did catch me out a little bit there with just how early it broke. We're up into P3 and we are behind the infamous Momos 91. But we're not going to get into any kind of action with Momos because we're going to make our first mistake of the race. And this race is going to be very much a story of mistakes, particularly over the first couple of laps. So that mistake drops us down to 5th place, and we are behind our friend from the last race who kind of was pretty much willing to do anything to get that 5th place after his mistake. So there's mistake number 2 down into Milzan corner. We misjudged the slipstream and we run a little bit wide, and it just goes to show how easy it is just to sort of make a mistake like that and drop out of slipstream range. In fact, I think we actually managed to just about hold into the slipstream there, but just a small mistake like that wasn't a major mistake by any means, but it's enough to kind of just drop you back that sort of quite a few car lengths and put you in trouble. So we make another mistake here. We actually run wide into Indianapolis. Now, a wee tip there, as you've seen, I went wide, but when I came back on the track I made sure to keep the car to the very edge of the track as we rejoined, instead of sort of throwing the car back onto the racing line. You see that sort of mistake by far too many drivers when they sort of come back on the track. They're desperate to get back on the racing line, and it makes it very unpredictable for cars that are coming up on a slow car to kind of predict what you're going to do. So always just sort of rejoin the track nice and gently, and that means the drivers behind you can kind of judge what you're going to do much easier. But those mistakes have now dropped us from a one-time 3rd place, and we're now in 6th place. So not a great start. Portuguese driver there going to pick up a half-second penalty for running wide. There we go. And then I'm going to not do a great job going through the 4 chicanes again. Similar story to the last race. They make a mistake, they get it all completely wrong, hold me up massively, and then they get on the loud pedal, try to sort of compensate for that mistake just a little bit too early and spin out. That's good news for us though, as it moves us back up to 5th place. So coming into the Dunlop chicane, I'm going to keep calling it the Dunlop chicane, and we're going to see we've picked up another half-second penalty, and the mistakes are just racking up quite badly in this one. So we serve that penalty, that drops us down to 6th place behind the French driver Devon. But we do have a nice slipstream coming down Golf Straight, and we're going to easily pass the Nissan there as we come down towards Indianapolis. Now again, I think just because of the benefit of the slipstream, we make a bit of a misjudgment here. I realised very early in the corner that I broke too late, so we just sort of had to kind of keep the car in a straight line to get the maximum braking force, instead of trying to turn the corner in when you know you're not going to make it. It obviously cost us time, it cost us less time than it would if we kind of tried to take the corner. That's going to drop us down to 8th place, and it's going to drop us down behind Roberts Racing. And this driver is going to come a little bit of a thorn in my side for the rest of this race. Now I quite clearly see I had quite a lot more pace than the driver in front. Anytime we were up behind them, we were able to we're having to sort of really compromise our speed, particularly through the last sector we were behind this driver. But of course they are in the Nissan, which means that I can do very little about them down the straight parts of the course, particularly the Mulsanne straight. So into Dunlop chicane here, you can see just how much more speed we're able to carry through the twistier sections than the Nissan. But pretty much single file through this part of the track. All we can do here is just make sure we're in the slipstream as we come on to the Mulsanne straight, and that way we're not going to lose any time before we can kind of get to the parts of the track where we are a little bit quicker. So just fast forwarding down the Mulsanne straight, you can see we've got the slipstream. We actually we're able to overtake, but once we get to 225 miles an hour, we kind of just hit a brick wall, if you like. Now the Portuguese driver there sort of slowly, gently nudges us into Mulsanne corner there, and it's just enough to put us out of the slipstream in the car in front. Again, just goes to show, just a little tiny contact like that, and you lose that slipstream to the car in front. Now that the slipstream is only 7.5 tenths. We've got a 3 wide coming down towards Indianapolis here. The bigger man has got a massive slipstream off the 2 other cars, but he's going to get it wrong coming into this corner. He's going to get on the power a little bit too early. That puts him off to the left hand side of the track, and we're back up into 8th place. And we are back behind Roberts Racing. Now we're going to hit warp speed here. So really what happens over the course of the next sort of lap and a half is that we close up into Roberts Racing quite a lot. We're catching the group of cars in front. We pick up another half-second penalty. We lose the slipstream down the Mulsanne straight here. Serve for penalty, but we're far enough ahead of the Spire to stay ahead of them. Again, we're just sort of now starting to close that gap back up with Roberts Racing. You can see we're nice and close here as we come through the twisty final section. We're getting held up quite a lot, but we're being very respectful. We don't make any contact, we don't make any silly moves. And we're now in the slipstream as we come down the Mulsanne straight for lap 5. Don't go for the overtake here, there's not really any point. And we'll rejoin the normal speed action on the Golf straight. So it is now time to make that move and get in front of this driver. So we've got a nice slipstream coming down the Golf straight, and we're going to get alongside in towards Indianapolis. Now we've still got a hope of 6th place if we can get this move done and sort of try and chase them down, but as we come into Indianapolis, Roberts Racing just decides that I don't actually have a car there, and it just turns fully into us. Now I did expect to maybe pick up a penalty there. As I said, the sort of penalty system seems a little bit sensitive to side-on contacts like that. So it seems to be fairly random in how it's sort of dishing the penalties out. But in this occasion, none of us pick up a penalty. So again, we've got a nice run coming down this other straight here towards the Porsche curves. Now, I don't know why he wants to sort of keep fighting these things. We are up the inside, but again, he just turns across our nose like we're not there. We are clearly quicker than this driver. And it's just one of these examples of, well, I personally think that, you know, if you just get somebody that much quicker behind you, then there isn't really any point in fighting it. All you're doing is holding yourself up, all you're doing is kind of making yourself more vulnerable to picking up a penalty, and all you're doing is sort of upsetting the driver behind you. Now by this point I was pretty miffed. I was going for this move regardless. He'd given me no space whatsoever in the last 2 overtake attempts, so I was in no mood to be charitable going into the 4 chicanes there. So he tries to fight it, picks up a penalty for his troubles. I'm not entirely sure if that was a contact penalty or for cutting the chicane, because he did actually make both of those mistakes. But we're now up into 7th. Now I do apologise to that driver there if he picked up the penalty due to my driving, but I was just a bit miffed by that point. So we were able to actually put in a half decent lap towards the end and also pick up 6th place as base design. manages to spin coming out the last chicane or gets it taken out, I'm not sure which. But it's another 6th place finish, so Super GT confirmed. Super GT, get out the building. Wombleleader is here now, taking all your 6th places. Anyway, that is the end of the action. Hopefully you've enjoyed the racing for these ones. I'm not going to do too many more of these. They do seem like a bit of a SR pit. Thankfully we managed to get out of both those races with our SR intact at 99. If you made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. Please hit that like button, please hit that subscribe button, and I shall see you on the next one. Goodbye now.